Hey folks, it's your pal Mike Shea from SlyFlourish.com and Twitter.com/SlyFlourish, here with another episode of Sly Flourish's Lazy D&D Prep. This is a weekly show shot 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Times in which I go through steps from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master while preparing for my Sunday D&D game. In this case, I am running a Eberron homebrew adventure that I am calling the Second Mourning, set in, obviously, the world of Eberron. This show, like all of the work of the Sly Flourish Empire, is brought to you by the patrons of Sly Flourish at patreon.com/SlyFlourish. You too can help support shows like this and the website and all the little costs and infrastructure that it takes to keep everything up and online by going to patreon.com/SlyFlourish and becoming a patron. Patrons get access to a monthly newsletter, exclusive newsletter, and they also get access to a bunch of other little things. One of them is an adventure, an exclusive adventure just for patron backers called Regnum Ratus, The Rats in the Cellar. This is a level 1 to 5 dungeon delving adventure in which the characters go down into the depths of a cellar beneath a old inn. What else? I got lots of things I want to talk about today. But probably the biggest one, because there's 1 hour left, so this is pretty much the last time we're going to be talking about it. And if you're seeing this on YouTube, I apologize, but you should still go buy it because it's really good. Ruins of the Grendleroot is currently a deal of the day on DriveThruRPG and is available for the low price of like $4.49 or something ridiculous like that. $4.48. You can save the extra penny. It is only available for 1 more hour. It's been up and online since yesterday. It's been doing very well. I think we have that 320 copies have sold, which is awesome. It actually made it a gold bestseller. So that was awesome. And it's a great way to get the PDF version of this book. And I have a link that I will give to you fine folks on Twitch. If you are seeing this later, it's still worth the money. And you should buy it anyway. Ruins of the Grendleroot, there's a whole other video on YouTube that you can watch about it, and you can go to the website and read all about it, so I'll be real quick. But it's 10 adventures set in a large underground city, a big underground cavern known as Blackclaw Mountain is the name of the mountain. There's a city called Shadowreach. There is an adventure outpost called Deep Delver's Enclave, and there are 10 adventures that take the characters all throughout the mountain and throughout the mystery of the mountain and that exists there. This was my Kickstarter that I did last year. Took me a year to put together. It's 150 pages, full color art, full color maps, full editing by Scott Fitzgerald Gray, a veteran Wizards of the Coast editor. I really like it. The feedback on it has been very good. The ratings are very good on both Amazon and on DriveThru. So people who get it like it, but not a lot of people find it. So that's one of the reasons for the Deal of the Day sale, and that seemed to have worked. So if you want your shot, now is the time. Go hit it up go click the link that's in the Twitch chat there. And whoever's in Twitch chat, he's not your problem. Hello. Would you be so willing to continually repost that link if people ask about it, if they ask about it? So that is the deal of the day. Like I said, if you're watching on YouTube, it's too late, but you should still go buy the book because it's really awesome. What else did I want to talk about? I wanted to talk about, and we'll do it when we're talking about our prep today. Let's go back to our return and go over to our pretty picture. I wanted to talk, is there still a preview chapter? Yes, there is a preview chapter that's available. You can go to, that's available on DriveThruRPG. If you click the full size preview, you'll get the whole thing, which includes a full adventure. And you can go to, you can Google Grendleroot. I'm pretty sure if you Google Grendleroot, it goes straight to me. Let's see what it goes to. So the first link goes to the Ruins of Grendleroot, and there's a free first level preview adventure. And here it is. It's a big preview, 23-page preview that includes the whole introduction to the book, history of Blackclaw Mountain, getting into the mountain or starting there, descriptions of all of the adventures, how the adventures are put together, and then an adventure called The Call of Starsong Tower, which includes, again, like nice, full color artwork of characters, full color maps, full color scenes, all kinds of stuff. So this is a first level adventure in which the characters go through and acquire their own little tower in Deep Delver's Enclave. So fun adventure. I adore this book. It's probably, I don't know if it's the favorite thing I've ever done. Return is awesome. Second favorite thing I've ever done? Maybe. It's up there. I really love it. And the creative work that I put into it, I really love. And I just adore this thing. So please buy it. So the other thing I wanted to talk about today was there was a conversation, Merrick Blackman brought this up on Twitter, and it's something that I've been playing with a lot, and I kind of dig, and it's a kind of question about when you're doing a homebrew adventure, kind of this is a very lazy DME sort of topic. What is the fastest way, the easiest way to build out, fill out the locations of a map and still give yourself room for improvisation? So what Merrick mentioned was going to Dyson logos. And we'll show an example of how I'm going to do this today because I got to do it for my prep today. We'll go to maps on Dyson logos. Dyson logos is your best place to map. I think it's the best way. 856 different maps. You can just download them. It's awesome. Great way to get maps. So I'm actually using this one for another adventure that I'm running. So we click on that and we will open this up in a new tab. So we have a map here, right? And the map is untagged, and we don't have anything about it, right? We don't know anything about this map. All we have are the locations. And one of the things that we can do, so what Merrick was suggesting, which is a very reasonable way to do it, and maybe the better way to do it. I don't know. I'm still, great thing about this community that we're in, this wonderful creative D&D community that we're in, is everybody's got a lot of different ideas and we can experiment with all of them. Experimenting is cheap. Experiment both in, not just in cost, but in kind of our creative energy and our impact, the energy to impact ratio is really low. So, that's good, right? Yeah. Energy over impact. You want, I don't know. Does that work? Impact over energy is really high. Something like that. So you generally, you want to do, you want like the easiest solution that's going to have a big impact to the game, right? That's the core of the Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master is what's the easiest thing you can do that can have a big impact on your game. Focus on that stuff. And there's lots of different ways that we can experiment with this thing, like hacking monsters. Like an example of a hard thing to do is building a monster from scratch and then making sure it's all mathematically correct and making sure the challenge rating is right, making sure that fits the theme. That's hard work. I made a decision back when I was freelancing for Wizards of the Coast and I realized that I could get paid to make monsters, that I would not make a monster unless I was getting paid. So, I used to back in the 3.5 days. I remember I made a boss once. Man, I'm down a rabbit hole. Drink coffee. Gotta relax a little bit. Hi, Mom. Glad you make it. I thought you weren't gonna make it today, but here you are. So in the 3.5 days, I made a boss once, and I in the 3.5 days, the ways you made bosses was monsters were essentially like characters. They used the same rules and mechanics that characters did. They used feats and they had all this stuff, which meant you could essentially take all the character option books and use it to build a monster. And it was as painful as making a character. So if you wanted to I made a 20th level drow matriarch, and I wanted her thing was that she was a shadow mage. And there was a book called the Book of Magic, the Tome of Magic. Somebody will remember. It was a 3.5 book that was near the end of 3.5 before 4th, and they had 3 different kinds of magic. They had rune magic, and they had, I think it was shadow magic, and they had something else. And I took spells from the shadow magic side and built a 20th level matriarch. And she had a lot of, I like really tweaked her out and made her, and it was sort of like optimizing the character. And she got killed, of course, in like 1 round. And it took me like hours to make her. And in 4th, you didn't have that problem, but there was still a lot of making monsters in 4th. And because the mechanics in 4th, like, I think the reality is, you can go do the research on this, but I believe playtesting for 4th didn't happen as well as it should. It certainly didn't happen like it did for 5th. And what it meant is that a lot of the monsters that came out in 4th, in the original monster manual, weren't great. They either were too heavy on armor class, too heavy on hit points, not enough damage, or they had really annoying abilities. My favorite one was the 4th edition Dracolich. It's a great, if you ever wanted to like have people quit D&D, run the 4th edition Dracolich. It had a breath weapon that stunned. It had an eye beam that stunned, and it had like an aura that stunned. It had like 3 ways of making sure players couldn't do anything. Most annoying monster ever. They made a new one, a rune-scribed Dracolich. I have the books over there. And they made a new one in the Essentials kit. The big common knowledge about 4th edition is that the D&D 4th edition Essentials kit, not to be confused with the 5th edition Essentials kit, the Essentials books, which was like, people refer to it as version 4.5, way better, way more balanced, way more fun, way more differences between character classes, but also stripped out a lot of the broken stuff, and players loved the broken stuff. So it meant that players weren't as eager to play Essentials Essentials characters as they were to play original characters. But the monsters in Essentials were also way better. So back when I was making monsters like that, I said, okay, this is really hard work. And then eventually Wizards of the Coast, I started to freelance for Wizards of the Coast, and I made a few monsters for them for Dragon Magazine and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, if I'm getting paid to make monsters, I'm not making new ones. I'm just going to reskin. And that's why I learned about reskinning and everything else. So now I firmly embrace that. I'm like, well, use a monster stat block that already exists for one. Then if you need to, modify it a little bit, tweak things here and there. I was making a monster for Fantastic Lairs, the book that we're working on now. And this is the Cloud Giant Vampire Lair. And I wanted the Cloud Giant Vampire to have essentially air elementals that protect him. The difference between these, they're blood elementals. And a blood elemental can does everything an air elemental does, only it does necrotic damage instead of bludgeoning damage. Real easy change, right? Real one line, necrotic instead of bludgeoning. I don't even think it's undead. It's still an elemental. So everything else on it is the same. And it's really cool because it's up on a big high platform with lots of drops, and air elementals can shove. So some characters might go over the edge. So you can reskin like that. And then there's other kind of bigger ways to reskin. But like the last thing to do is to make something new. And I really feel that when I'm getting all the way back to that, like, effort over value, right? The effort over impact, is that the effort of making a monster. Yeah, you want the lowest ratio of effort over impact, right? And the when you make a monster, that's a lot of effort, and the impact for that doesn't really change. Like the difference between you running a monster that already exists or running a monster that you made to the players and to the game and to the group really isn't that big a difference. But I'm nervous about a lot of shoving in Theater of Mind. Oh, we should talk about Theater of the Mind. What are you doing in Theater of Mind? Tell me about Theater of Mind. I love talking about Theater of Mind. So, yeah, so easier is like reskin a thing, right? Or just call it something different. Or say, well, now it does fire damage, right? And they talk about this in the Dungeon Master's Guide. If you read it, this is not some Mike Shea BS. This is in the core books, right? If you look at the Dungeon Master's Guide under creating a creature, it starts with reskin. It starts with tweak an element. It starts with just, pull a line out of this text, out of this chart, and use that. And the last thing it does is say, okay, if you really want to build a monster, and then it gets into and if you want to add class levels to monsters, you can do that too. So it has options for all of that. But I think a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of people reskin. And I should do a survey. This would be an interesting survey. Mike Shea's BS, yeah. Kobold Press has a blood elemental stat block. Yeah, the problem is we want to use SRD for everything, a core SRD. So we're going to take SRD monsters and tweak them rather than using monsters from elsewhere, because then now you got dependencies for other books. Reskinning, man. And that's an example of like really good ratio of effort over impact is when you just take a air elemental and you say, now it does necrotic damage, which you can do in your head, right? You don't need to write anything down. You don't have to put in a 3x5 card. You don't have to put in your notes. You just say, oh yeah, I'm going to make this a blood elemental, and now it does necrotic damage. And then you just change it. And all you have to do is say the word necrotic damage instead of bludgeoning damage. It's really easy to do. And the impact for that is really low, but the impact is high because they're like, oh my God, elementals made out of blood. And you're like, you could describe them in the flavor and everything else. Reskinning with flavor is I think an underappreciated talent, right? That just describe things differently. Put your effort into it, right? God help you. Don't just describe the numbers, right? Don't say, don't roll a die and be like 16 to hit, and they go hit, and you go 26 damage, and then go to the next one. Start and end with the fiction. I think that's a dungeon world thing. Like start and end with the fiction. Describe what's going on, then, figure it out with a roll, and then describe what happens based on the roll. Fiction, mechanics, fiction, right? And you wrap the whole game that way. Tactical Delta Niner sucks. Yeah, I guess that's the way. I've played games and I've had DMs who did that. The stench of blood, right? And then like when it slams you and you slammed against the wall and the blood's, yeah, that might get gross, but you could definitely have some fun. How does this get back to, what time is it? It's 15. My coffee's in the way. I have 2 coffees here, and they're not caffeinated, and I haven't even started drinking them yet. So I'm just excited. I'm happy to play some D&D. So this gets back to maps. And what Merrick was saying, which again is a very reasonable approach, is that he will take a Dyson map like the one we have down in the lower right corner. He will take an image editor of some sort. You could probably do it in PowerPoint, right? You could probably easily drop this. Let's, drop this in PowerPoint. Let's see if I can do it in the Google. I bet you could do this in Oh, what is this nonsense now? Go to Google Slides. Come on. Make a new one. Get rid of that thing. Get rid of this stuff. Paste. It's going to paste? I don't think it's going to paste. It's because the map is too big. Windows Shift S. And we will grab a... whoops. All right, we'll just do that. Obviously didn't work particularly well. But we drop a map in here. And we zoom in, zoom 200%, right? And what he can do is then you go in and you just put your little text box and you go bink and you say 1, right? And then, you know, you move your text box around. We'll make this real small. Widen this, I don't know why it's so short. There we go. So now we have a little, you know, drop a 1 and then you create it. What the hell happened there? I'm doing a terrible job at this. I think people get the idea though, right? Copy this. There we go. Go up to the next room. 2, right? And you could do your whole map this way, right? You can go and label your map, and then you open up a text editor or anything like that, and you just jot down what are a couple of interesting things that'll be in that room. And that's very much like the Lazy DM approach, right? When you're doing fantastic locations in the 8 steps of Return to the Lazy Dungeon Master, one of them is create fantastic locations, and you could label them here, and you could put them in there. What I proposed was an approach that I've been taking that I think is easier because you don't have to label the map, I'm screwing around here, and this is not as hard as I made it look. You know, like, again, I just did this. I don't even have a tool on here, right? I don't have an image editor on this computer, but I was able to go pull up Google presentations and grab the map and drop it in here and roll, right? Pretty straightforward. And then you just make a list and you say 1, 2, 3, here are the things in there. What I propose is not labeling the map. We get rid of that. We just stick with this, and instead we look at this, and we're gonna just make a new page here. So over on the left, as always, is so we're gonna make junk, just so I know it's not real, and we're gonna do bullet. This is Notion, and Notion is it's like OneNote, web-based OneNote. That's probably a good way to describe it. It's an online notebook thing, and I'm using it for my notes. And I'll get into it a little bit here, but just trust me, it's Notion.so and junk page. So what we do is we look at our map on one side. I have the map flipped over on the other side. And we say, what's in it? And so you can look at the rooms and say stuff. And you might say, like, Dwarven statues. We'll do crumbled. You might even number these instead of we'll turn this into a numbered list. And not necessarily because they correspond to a room, but because you can roll on them as a random thing. And then we'll have like Dwarven altar. And then we'll have pillars of Dwarven lords. You can tell that I'm a Dwarven thing. We have Vermin Bridge. We have Sunken River. Now, as you can see, I'm kind of like describing these different things. But the answer is, for a lot of these, like the Dwarven Altar and the Pillar of the Dwarven Lords and all this other stuff, you might not place them in any particular room, and you might change what's in the room. So you instead of, in fact, I'm not even doing this correctly. Like, rather than describe what's in the map, I can instead like not even look at the map and say like, what are, in this case, I would say like, what are 10 things? What are 10 things that we might find in a Dwarven stronghold? So let's say like big Dwarven weapons. We might find an altar to a Dwarven god. We might find huge Dwarven statues, murals of great battles. We'll do 6. just for ease. Don't look at the map. I'm looking at the map. I'll go back to my Eberron picture. Murals of great sieges. What other interesting things? Gem encrusted throne. And something else you'd find in a dwarven ruin. The ruins of a dwarven citadel is what we're looking at. It's always the last one that's always tricky. Fountain, right? Mechanical fountain. We'll call it an eternal fountain of fire and water. Right? As you can see, the last one's the most creative one because it took the hardest one to think. So now I've got a list of things that I could find in there, right? And now instead of specifically mapping stuff to locations, I have a list of things they could find. And then I can decide, like, room 1, what do they find? And I can go to the list and I'd be like, I think in here we're going to put the dwarven statues, or, and then some of these will come up with, but maybe like this hall here, that's where I put the dwarf crafted eternal fountain with a fire and water. Like that would be pretty cool. The huge dwarven statues I could put here. I can drop them wherever. And if I'm lost, I can roll. So why is this better than labeling it? Well, A, it's probably easier. It takes less time, and that's always good. But 2, another good reason is that it gives you the freedom to improvise while you're playing. So I might not drop these things in, or I might decide like, that's, that doesn't really fit here, or I got some other better idea while I'm running. And I'm not as tied tightly to what is where in a map. I can come up with it a little more loosely. Who was I talking? So I was talking to Scott Fitzgerald Gray on Friday, editor of Fantastic Lairs and Ruins of the Grendleroot and Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master and the Monster Manual, the 5th edition Monster Manual, and all the D&D books. Tons of D&D books. So, and he was saying, he said he actually, when he teaches people how to DM, he talks to people about how to DM, he recommends that. He recommends, like, don't take an old map from an old place and write down a list of things that might be discovered there, and then put those 2 in front of you, and then improvise what goes where during the game. And this falls into that, prepare to improvise. Another thing we would do here, so we have, like, stuff, right? And then the other thing we would have is monsters, right? And same thing. What would be down here? Black puddings, hook horrors, carrion crawlers, mimics, animated statues, and what else? Bandits, right? Thieves. So, now I've got my monsters, I've got my locations, and if you can tell, like we're going to... and then I would put another one, as you can imagine, the steps from Return would be secrets. What are some secrets? And then I'm not going to fill these out here because I've got it in my own game to prep for. I mean, it's important stuff. But you can tell, like, this is a great way to sort of quickly fill out a map and a location, and it's real fast. You saw me just whip through it, right? The secrets would probably take the longest, and even that's only 5 or 10 minutes. And now I've got a map. I've got things that they can find in these places and see. I've got monsters they can fight. I've got secrets. Again, NPCs. Probably want to drop a couple NPCs in here so they have somebody to talk to, like the bandits, or maybe the bandits are hunting somebody who hid down here, but now they're trapped because of stupid hook horrors. All kinds of things. So you can see how this comes together. And Merrick's approach is great. And the nice thing that Merrick's approach does, and what's Merrick's approach? I mean, Merrick's awesome and I love him, but the idea of keying a map is not unique to Merrick. But the idea of quickly preparing your own thing for your own play, of grabbing a map, writing numbers, I would actually suggest, like, instead of screwing around with an image editor, print it out, get a Sharpie, draw numbers on it, right? Like, save yourself the effort of mucking around, unless you're really good with Photoshop, really good with whatever tool that can annotate a map, and I'm not. Print it out and draw numbers on it, and then you can go with that. And the nice thing there is that it's more solid than if you're making it up as you go. The location feels more solid. And you might say, I'm going to make the locations keyed to specific rooms, but the monsters and the secrets I'm not. And that's fine. That's a great way to go, and may end up being the better way to go. But I'm playing with the idea, because it's faster and because I'm lazy, of not bothering to key the map, and instead just saying what are the things they would find in here, and I will improvise as we go. And I think that can work pretty well. Let's see what chat has to say about this. A brewery. Everybody was giving me ideas and I wasn't paying attention to it. You can get a bullet in Notion by typing a dash in space. Yeah, I know. And I think if you just start numbering things, they'll do it too. Destroyed Forge. That would have been awesome. Is that a Dwarven Forge? Woo, Dwarven Forge. Somebody's pimping their own channel. Don't do that. That's mean. Thank you for reporting and blocking. I don't know how do I report? Is there a way to report? This is the report. Spam. Go away. Bot account. Man, they make you do a lot of work. Don't make it more work for the person reporting the spammer than the spammer, right? Like, give me a break. Sorry. Notion.so, amazing. Thanks. What's the software? Yep. Software to make a map is DysonLogos.com. Don't make maps. Well, I say things. Feel free to make maps. Instead of don't make maps. There's 850 maps on DysonLogos.com. 850. And the dude's a pro. The guy is pouring maps out. He's done the maps for like many of the hardcover books of who are we to make our own maps? Like, why not just grab those maps? There's so many out there. So much easier. Just like making a monster, right? I make maps when I'm paid to make a map. And even then I end up finding cartographers who we then pay to make maps. So, see what for the ease. This is, one approach, right? We all have different approaches. I am not knocking other approaches. I'm not saying make maps. I'm not saying that the world won't love your campaign world that you're going to spend a year building out. They're not going to love it. Not many people will love it. But if you want map software, a web browser and DysonLogos.com is the way to go. Swoopy has never played D&D. Hey, can somebody do me a favor and grab the link? Let's see. I'll go find it because I've been working on this for a while. I have an article on Sly Flourish that I continually update called Getting Started with D&D. Right here. That is all of the combined knowledge and experience and surveys and everything, trying to boil it down to what does it mean to play D&D and where to get started and what you should buy and what you should not buy, what you can get for free, all that kind of stuff is available on that Getting Started with D&D, Getting Started Dungeons & Dragons article. That's mine. There are many. If you search for it, you'll find a lot. Oh boy. So let's prep a game. It is 10:30. Time to prep. So we are going to close this page and we are going to delete this junk page. All that knowledge lost. Delete. And we are going to go to our session planning template. And we click and we say duplicate. And we drag it to the top. And we open it. And we create a 26 July 2020 Sunday Eberron. That is our game notes for today. So this is all in Notion. If you want, you can create your own copy of this. I have a thing called the Lazy Campaign. I'm going to copy this link and I'll paste it into Twitch chat. It is a lazy DM template for making for prepping for your game, and it's a template I'm continually improving and updating. And it's a way to keep track of your campaign in Notion that I use for Return when I'm doing my steps from Return to Lazy Dungeon Master, blah, 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 blah. And this is it. So the first thing we do is we duplicate the session planning template and create a new session planning set of notes for today's game. And then the next thing we do is we review the characters. So we go back to here and we have our Sunday characters. We have 6 characters, but I know one of them might be out today. I'm not sure who's in and out, who's out today. So Zarentir Delander is, he's important. He is currently flying the Goldbright airship. He is a Delander, Dragonmark, Storm Dragonmark guy flying an airship. And things look bad for his airship. Saber is a monk, member of the Four Winds Monastery. Shift is a Warforged, one of the original Warforged. She has a brother named Crash, who is currently riding shotgun in her mind with a Crash's memory crystal, which was taken from his body, is now in her head and tells her stuff. We have Shane Husk, the novelist, who has recently, I think he is not going to make it today, which is good because he got charmed by a Lamia and led off into another part of the ship. So we'll see what happens with Shane Husk. We have Banner, who is a Warforged paladin, follower of the Becoming God. And we have Arwen Chi Zizu, who is an artificer and member of a house member of Civis. So those are the characters. We reviewed the characters real quickly. Go back to the notes. Review, bang. Strong start. The Goldbright is crashing into... and we use our little dirty tricks of linking to locations. The Goldbright, oh no, is crashing into the night sky. The characters are surrounded by Jackalwares. Loyal to Valentine. Surrounded by Jackalwares, loyal to Valentine. They are inside the main hull of the ship. To crash or not to crash the Goldbright? That is the question. So, to give you some context here, the characters got a hold, borrowed the Goldbright. The Goldbright is an airship. It is a Zarentir's father's ship, and they took it along with Zarentir's father's butler, who takes care of the ship caretaker, who just is sitting and drinking scotch the whole time. And they roared off with the ship. They pushed it beyond its limits. They found the night sky. There was a great air battle. They fought illusionary chimeras, which was a lot of fun and worked out really well. And then they ended up crashing. They ended up crashing the Goldbright into the side of the night sky. The Goldbright it got fireballed by Leto Skal. It's in bad shape. And we ended with Chi getting ready to blow a hole in the engine of the Goldbright, which is I think a pair of air elementals. It's a pair of arguing fire elementals. I think it's It's paired by two air elementals, Argo and Pollux, and Argo and Pollux argue with each other all the time. Argo is very aggressive. Pollux is they are the Waldorf and Statler are the NPCs for this. Arwen wants to blow open the canister, the chambers that are holding these two elementals, which powers the ship, which means the ship is gone. But now you got two elementals roaring around, and Zarentir is against this idea. So we're going to see how that goes. That is kind of where things start. In the meantime, aboard the Night Sky, the Night Sky is our villain, Leto Skal, a Oni who is trying to build a new weapon of mourning, has this massive stealth airship, and he is flying it towards the Mournland. And he has a huge Eberron shard on board, and he has like 24 Jackalwares and he's got a bunch of dudes that are hanging out with him. And many of the characters have now boarded the airship, and are on board the airship. Let me pull up a different thing than the article here. And they're surrounded, and they started fighting them. Is the Goldbright from the Eberron guide? The art might be. I don't know. I steal the art from all over the place. The Holdo maneuver. Is that what the Holdo maneuver is? Smash an airship into another airship. So, yeah, the big question is the Goldbright going to survive or not? I give it low likelihood because it's already beat up pretty bad. But maybe if they can convince, if Zarentir can convince Arwen not to blow open the engines, the ship may survive. It's going to be very badly damaged. If, however, they do blow open the engines, the Goldbright is going to go tumbling off the side and fall down into the rocks below. But the air elementals will then be flying around the night sky, and they could be convinced to attack the night sky and stuff like that. So lots of fun there. So that is the strong start. Let's go back to our notes. So scenes. Scene 1 is crash. We're gonna grab this line here because that's our scene 1. Battle in the hold. Facing Leto's skull. I don't know that there's any way they're going to be able to stop Leto. Leto's so crafty, but we'll see. And I think they're down at least a couple of people. Rescuing Shane Husk. Finding the Eberron shard. Escaping the night sky. So these are loose. I have no idea if any of this is going to come about. So secrets and clues. Some of these are not too secret and not too clue filled. The Leto, we can again link to people, has his massive Eberron on board the night sky. Leto also, does he have the book? Yeah. He has the Tome of Kol Seer. Leto doesn't know where Claw Rift is. Where Making in the Glass Plateau is. Leto wants to take the from Arwen. So Arwen has a dodecahedron around her neck, and Shift has actually Crash has the word to open the dodecahedron, which can turn it into a compass that, if put inside Karshak, can locate Making in the Glass Plateau, which is where Claw Rift is. Claw Rift and Making in the Glass Plateau is where the original Weapon of Mourning was made, and it's where you would have to take the Eberron Shard and the Tome of Kol Seer in order to make a new weapon. Leto plans to build a new Weapon of Mourning to become his own nation state, ratified by an updated Leto plans to build a new Weapon of Mourning to become his own nation state, ratified by an updated Treaty of Thronehold. That is his ultimate agenda. Oh, that coffee's good. That other one was cold. That is his plan. Who else? Leto has spent all of his money hiring assassins from House Leto has spent all of his money hiring assassins from House Tarkanon as his personal bodyguards. Leto still strings along the daughters. Leto still strings along the daughters of Sora Cal, claiming that he will give the weapons to them. Leto has his own sentient dreaming orb called what is it called? Villains. Chris. Similar, a sibling of lack. A sibling of lack. So these are sentient crystal balls that are very, very old, hundreds of thousands of years old. And they have a sentient personality from essentially they have a quarry in them. And the quarry has its own agenda. Chris and Lack have their own agenda. To bring back Chris and Lack have their own agenda to bring back the connection of Dalcor, the plane of Dalcor, to the world. So that's a thing. So what else? These would be secrets and clues that are aboard the ship. What powers the ship? Oh, did we say an Efreet? Like a blue burning Efreet? That he found? Probably, right? The night sky. Is powered by a blue burning Efreeti. So, yeah, that's all good, right? Good secrets. And that all could come out as this game goes on. Let's see. Whoops. It's like teams. It's called Notions. Thanks. I have a Notion. It's Notion. Notion is the tool that I use. Yes. Fantastic locations. So, how loyal is the bad guy crew? Valentine is extremely loyal because Leto rescued her from her cursed temple in Zendrek, where she'd been trapped for tens of thousands of years, and brought her back to the world. So she's very loyal to him. Her Jackal-wares are fanatically loyal to her. The Tarkanon assassins are pretty loyal. They're not just because these guys, I mean, you pay a mint to have these guys working for you. So they're very loyal. So I would say the crew is pretty loyal. The only ones who might betray might be the Tarkanon guys. And they wouldn't want it to ever go back. That they probably would fight to the death because it ruins their house. Otherwise, Thespius says Notion greater than OneNote. In many ways, I think it is. In one way, it's not. Is that you have to be online in order to use it. There's no offline mode, and OneNote has an offline mode. But Notion has a lot of other things I dig, and I like the layout better. But to each their own. And I think OneNote is a fine approach. So now we have the locations, and now we're going to do what I was talking about. So they are boarding. So we're going to say we'll do it the way I was talking about before. And we will number these. Whoops, I just lost everything. Oh, come on. All right. So what are 10 things that you would find on Leto Skal's ship? Room of Zen. Room of Zendrek artifacts. Army of animated armors. And that would also go in monsters, right? We have animated. We also have maybe a helmed horror, right? But he might have a room of ones that he hasn't yet fired up. These are like he's built, he's built and animated out of Zendrek armor, animated Zendrek armors, right? What else do we have? What else would Lido have in his ship? A posh relaxation room. Murals, tapestries, like bound. He took like all of the stuff that he loves from his place is in here. Yeah, I don't suggest to any, if you've got a system that works for you, don't switch to a new one just to switch to a new one. I was between campaigns and I wanted to try Notion out, and I did, and it worked really well. If you were starting a new one, it's worth giving it a shot. Again, we're experimenting with all kinds of things. You might find out. Oh, Snark Knight. Awesome. Book of Blackmail. Probably that's safe, right? Safe of blackmail material on Aurum members, including Zarentir's father. That's awesome. What other? Room full of spider robots. His excavators. Other things that you would find in Leto Skal's ship. Obviously, a crystalline floating crystal steering orb. Right, so you actually control it by putting your hands in this orb and it kind of puts your vision all around the ship. That could work. If you were an Oni on your own personal airship, how would you build this airship out? Oh, so obviously, like massive chamber holding the that's down in the deep hold. Yeah, he that's exactly right. He drives the ship with the equivalent of a magic ball mouse. Exactly right. Obviously the engine, right? The 3D powered engine. One more cool location that the characters might find aboard this airship. The ruins of Valentine's temple, and she kind of brought it with her. So there's little like vampires, right? Like when Dracula brought his dirt from his own place with him, she's got archways and stuff from her old ruins that she needs. She's cursed. She has to stay near her temple, and so she brought the temple here, and the temple is here. And I think she's immortal. I think she can always come back. So I think like maybe she's, yeah. Valentine's really cool. So those are great, 10 great, fantastic. Now, as you notice, so I have a map of the night sky, right? So I've got like, and when they come in, they banged into this area. And so a lot of these chambers are in the front of the ship, the back of the ship, and then on the lower deck. And the forecastle and the quarterdeck has stuff like that. Forecastle might be from where, quarterdeck is probably where, So I'm just stealing the Emperor of the Waves. By the way, you want a good ship dungeon, the Emperor of the Waves map from Ghosts of Saltmarsh is a good ship map. One thing that Dyson does not have are maps of ships. He apparently doesn't like doing them. So he doesn't have one. But that's the map that we're going to use for today's game. Back. NPCs, we have Valentine. We have Lido. Did I make an NPC for because he's becoming a guy now? I don't think I did. I got a lot of NPCs going on here. So in the last session, so back here under my old adventures, and we look at last Sunday's game. I think I had an NPC in here. Dawson Riddleharp. So NPCs, we're going to create a new NPC. Bang. Dawson Riddleharp. Works for Zarenteers. Of the Goldbright. Not the Goldbright. Loves his scotch. I don't have a picture, but I'm not going to worry about a picture right now. But Dawson is now a enough of an NPC worth having a card. Go away. Are there any other NPCs here? I don't think so. Spiderbots. So we have Tarkanon Assassins. We have a lot of monsters, boy. Tarkanon Assassins of Freedy. We have Jackalwares. We have an Oni, and we have a Lamia. Probably have a mage. And veterans. A cool thing you can do with maybe an assassin, actual assassin. Depending on how hard we want to make this. So that's a list of the monsters. We have a list, that's a lot of monsters that we could play here. I don't know which ones I'm actually going to use during the game, so we're going to have to see, but that's all set. Treasure, I think let's look back at last, whoops, wrong one. See all my campaigns I got a lot of campaigns going on. Old Adventures. Last Sunday. I think I already picked out some treasure that, yeah, look, this is all the treasure. So we're just going to move that over. Those are all the treasure that last week I decided I needed. And that is it, right? So all 8 steps from return are done. And I feel pretty confident. It's going to be a chaos. I'll tell you. So last game I ran in, somebody mentioned Theater of the Mind, and I ran, if you can imagine like a complicated situation, 2 airships crashing together with chimeras flying around, and some people were on top of the ship and some people were overboard on the other ship. And some people were, facing off against Jackalwares. Some people were swinging by ropes across, 1,000-foot drop, all kinds of stuff. And we handled all of it with both Theater of the Mind and the this thing, my one-dimensional, the one-dimensional battle map. Let's see if I can go back to last week's game. I might actually. So you can see here, like here's an example of. And it's cool because this is actually, I think, the current situation that exists over here. So I'm going to paste that over here. This is my text-based battle map, right? Where and if you paste this into Discord, I think will this work if I do how do I render it in Markdown? It doesn't render in Markdown. It normally would. Can you go to Markdown? That shows you what it looks like in Markdown. Oh, weird. So, you have locations that are wrapped in double asterisks. That bolds them, typically. You have character names. Why did it only highlight that? That's weird. We'll just do text. Is it plain text? God. All right. we have character names are italicized by wrapping them in underscores. 3 dashes designates roughly the equivalent of a move between one zone and another. So you imagine that in this circumstance, we have 2 zones, the Goldbright, the ship that's crashing to the side of the night sky, and the night sky's upper deck, which is where everybody else is. Up there, we have, 6 Jackalwares, including at least one that's knocked prone. There's 5 other Jackalwares up there. So there's still 11 Jackalwares left. We could have some other crazy things going on in that deck. So that is all in. I was able to describe this incredibly complicated battle, and I think everybody got it. And we were doing it online, which makes it even harder. But the idea of zone-based combat, this idea of an abstract map that basically says what are the major big locations? Think 30 by 30 foot areas, 5 square by 5, or 5 by 5, or 6 by 6 square areas. Instead of having a square equals 5 feet, have a square equals 30 feet, and then give it a big name like the Goldbright, an airship, or the Night Sky Upper Deck. And then, Savage Stalker says zone-based combat is how I'm running things, and it's working great. Zone-based, I think really, of all of the different abstract combat systems I've used and run and played in other games like 13th Age and Fate and Numenera and Dungeon World and D&D and all the different systems I've played, of the different ones I've used, Shadow of the Demon Lord, zone-based combat I like the best. And the idea basically is you identify your zones. Fate is where I really heard about this the first time. You identify your zones. A zone is like a big room. You give it an evocative name, something that builds imagery in people's heads, like the Night Sky Upper Deck or the Goldbright airship. And you decide who's in that zone. The hardcore 5e rules talk about zones. It makes combat tense and meaningful instead of dropping into too much minutia. Exactly. That's exactly right. To each their own. Everybody's style is their own, and if your group is enjoying it, who the hell am I to say it otherwise? Same disclaimer I always give. However, I like to focus on high fantasy and high adventure. I like the story to be big and bold and craziness happening, and people swinging by ropes and people jumping up on top of airships that are going 500 miles an hour. I want all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to get caught up in who's in what 5-foot square and how can I arrange my thunder waves so that I hit, the exact right number of people and not another character and all this. And it's just like big, bold moves is what we're looking for. And zones are about big, bold moves. And that way, when somebody says, I want to cast Fireball, you're like, you're going to hit everybody in the zone if you do Fireball. And it's like, well, we're going to do that. Or how can I cast a Fireball? Can I cast a Fireball and only hit the 5 Jackalwares? He says, yes, bang, you boom. And you describe Jackalwares flying through the air as a Fireball explodes. Like, people don't even think about what a Fireball is, right? They just think about, well, it's a big radius and it can hit so many guys. It does 28 damage and save for half. They don't think about, like, it's a big ball of fire exploding in the middle of the ship. Like, what's that like? Boom, right? It's an explosion. So, that's why I think, like, in Waterdeep Dragon Heist, when they use the Fireball as a story element, right? The room, a piece of a block, a building in a block explodes. Big deal. So zone-based combat works really well. And there's if you want to know more about zone-based combat, I've got articles on Flourish about it. So I have a thing about making these battle maps. I think that was the last one I did. Text-based combat tracking for D&D on Discord. So the whole article about how to run these kind of battles. I bring it up as like, this is kind of how Darkest Dungeon does it. This is what it looks like when you render it in Markdown, and that's how it will look when you render it in Discord. But then I think I had, the main thing is like it's easy to kind of come up with new rules about zones. Like, what does it mean when this happens? And instead it's like the zones are really just there to help players and DMs agree about like who's where and who's next to who. And then within that, it's just reminding you. And so you can still use all the other 5th edition things like opportunity attacks or how many you can hit in a battle. And, so you can still describe things pretty in particulars instead of coming up with a whole new layer of rules about zone-based combat. Instead, it's, keeping a loose grip on it and saying this is a way to show us how things are set up, still using standard D&D rules. So I think it can, I think it can work well as a representation of how things exist, right? And I think like my last paragraph here is like, hang on with a loose grip, right? Which is a common. This is a big long article. hang on with a loose grip, right? That, you're going to have to work with it. There isn't an ideal situation. Stay flexible, try things out. Would this work with a room in a dungeon, or is that just one? Yeah. So typically, Thespius says, would you have multiple zones? You only have multiple zones if you need them. If you're in a room in a dungeon and the room is 30 by 30 or 25 by 30, you just have the room. You don't have to have anything else, right? Zones really exist when you have at least a couple of areas. If it takes a move action or more to get from one place to the other, then you probably have a zone. So they're usually for big chambers. Or in this case, big scenes, right? I have a whole airship as one zone. Really, I could have broken both airships into multiple zones, but instead I'm just like, all we really care about is who's on the Goldbright. And we can remember that Zarentir's in the cockpit and Chi is in the back. We don't need to have separate zones for that, unless I threw a lot of monsters there and it got confusing about who's attacking Zarentir up at the cockpit and who's attacking Chi in the back. Then I might split it up into separate zones. And the nice thing with this text-based thing is you just create another zone, right? You just double asterisk, type out the zone name, double asterisk, and now you got two zones, right? So it's really easy to kind of create these zones on the fly. And you only do it when you need to clarify the battle. You don't start with big complicated zones. You only expand zones out as you need them. So yeah, zones can be any size. Generally speaking, you want to have a zone, you want to make it so that a character can move from one zone to another. And that's, with a single move. Right, that as their move, they can go from one zone to another. I think that's really the key to a good zone-based system. If it's smaller than a move action, it's really one zone. And there are some cases though where like things are really far away, and you're like you can't get that far. Then what I do is I put 2 double dashes. I have that here somewhere. So here, right, this Gnoll on the flying disc, you can't just move to him. He's 60 feet out or more. Right, he's long range, so it would take you a move and a dash, and being able to fly to get to this Gnoll, and then we just separate it with a pair, with 2 triple dashes. How do you handle PCs with much higher speed, like a monk? Can they move 2 zones? Yeah, absolutely. Right. So a lot of times you say because you're a monk you can do X, right? Because you're a monk, the monk could get over this Gnoll on the flying disc, right? Same with a rogue that wants to use the dash action as their rogue move. They can do that too. So yeah, that the hard part comes with like, well, how do you deal with the fact that the monk has a speed of 45 and that's not quite a full double? Well, sometimes you give him double, sometimes you don't, right? So you got to play it out. You got to play it by a key to this whole system is that the circumstances are going to dictate how you do what, right? And how you decide what's going on. But you use the general description of what's the zone, who's in the zone. Here I put the amount of damage that they've taken, who's where, and then the double dash is like how many move actions does it take? It only takes 1 move action. It says, 1, so on and so forth. And you can throw lots of monsters, right? 25 crawling claws in a big group are attacking Crawl. Crawl is surrounded by 50 crawling claws, like nasty, right? 16 skeletons are up above with these guys. So yeah, this article has a whole lot about kind of how to handle that sort of thing. And then I have my guidelines for Theater of the Mind combat, which I think is in start here. There it is. Building and running encounters. Running Theater of the Mind combat is a whole article about how to run Theater of the Mind combat. It's also available in the Lazy DM workbook. And mostly it's like your described thing. It's got a lot about movement in here too, I think. Narrative and abstract maps, rolling randomly to determine targets, going big with descriptions, lots of stuff here. So yeah, this is and it's got a 1-page guide. If you like a nice, simple printable 1-page guide, it also has I went ahead and made the 2-page Theater of the Mind guidelines from the Lazy DM workbook available for free. So this has lots of stuff about movement. And I think it even talks about extending movement and stuff like that. Yeah, whole section of movement here. I'll paste that in the chat too. So, anyway, good chat today. I think it was fun to talk about this stuff. I think the deal of the day is now over. And I would... So there was a contest going on, by the way. Yep, it's back to full price. So those of you who are getting to this late, sorry. It's still worth it. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. It's definitely worth $15. It's a deal for $15. It was an insane deal for $5. And 10 people are going to win the art book, the Ruins of the Grendleroot art book and map pack. The map pack comes with everything. But the art book, the PDF art book is available. And I am going to give that away to 10 people who supported the tweet that had this. And I'm going to figure out how to do that. So there we go. So I want to thank everybody for coming today. Thanks to all the fine folks who gave me great ideas in the Twitch chat, as always. And I will be back on next week, and we will find out what happened in the night sky, and crazy events are going to occur, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see. So thank you all. Have a great week, and get out there and play some D&D.